Welcome back to Uninformed Movie Reviews, the podcast where we review movies and things, and we're thankful about things. Hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, and your tummies are all full of leftover turkey and pie and such treats. And today we have a special treat for you, our second installment of Doppelbanger or Dopplestänker. Where we talk about two doppelganger movies, if you will.
If you didn't see on the title already, we're doing Volcano, 1997, versus Dante's Peak, 1997.
Not Dante's Inferno, like I kept Googling all day accidentally.
Yeah, very different story.
Once you start mistaking it, you just can't stop.
And just to be clear here, so what qualifies a doppelganger movie? We're looking for two movies released within a year of each other. They got to be released closely, that just have almost the same plot, or at least the same premise. I think these two are pretty different as far as execution. Last time we did Armageddon and Deep Impact, and this is kind of the same situation. I feel like it feels very much the same, like the same premise, but two really different ways of approaching it. So why don't we dive in here? I got a little synopsis for these two films. And let's go ahead and start with Volcano, because that's what I saw most recently. We got Tommy Lee Jones as Mike Rourke. I almost called him Mick Rourke.
Mick Rourke.
Mick Rourke.
Mick Volcano.
Tommy Lee Jones is Mike Rourke. He's like a government official, and he spends most of this movie yelling out neighborhoods of Los Angeles, like, get down to Fifth Avenue or whatever.
Los Cienega. It's on Los Cienega.
Okay, go ahead and divert this. Close all the traffic off. He's just shouting the whole movie into a little walkie-talkie. But basically, what's happening here is Tommy Lee Jones, single dad, doing his best. When one day in L.A., there's a volcano that opens up underneath. What's the neighborhood, Danny? You're the California guy.
It's in La Brea Tar Pit.
There we go.
Pretty much south downtown L.A.
There's your accurate California knowledge. Mm-hmm. And Anne Hesh plays Dr. Amy Barnes, who is a geologist. And she's, there for the ride, I guess. Not a lot of science. Science isn't a big part of this movie.
She's there to be mansplained to, David.
Yeah, for reals. And then we also got, I just think the other notable, cast member is probably Don Cheadle, who's playing like the head of the Situation Room. There's a lot of Situation Room in this movie where people are just getting what seems like instant updates on what's going on. They know
in the 90s somehow.
Something explodes in the street and they have like footage of it and they're like talking about it in real time. It's pretty amazing.
While we're talking about notable characters, did you guys recognize, I forget the character's first name, but Tommy Lee's daughter in this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Kelly Rourke.
Yeah, Kelly Rourke. She is featured in another channel feature, Uncle Buck. She's the tiny little one.
Yeah, and it looks like she's also the daughter in Field of Dreams. I haven't seen that one in a while.
That's funny. Uncle Buck is a movie that popped up on our John Hughes film ranking, which we did a couple months back. So go back in our catalog and check it out.
Go find it.
Okay, so that's Volcano. Basically, the volcano opens up in Los Angeles, and then they spend most of the movie trying to slow down the lava. And that's more or less the whole plot of that film. Yeah. Dante's Peak, on the other hand, we have James Bond starring as a volcanologist. In particular, we're talking about Pierce Brosnan and James Bond.
Oh.
Yeah, no, sorry. Just to be clear here, it is not the late what's this guy's name? Sean Connery. Sean Connery. It's not the late Sean Connery. We got Pierce Brosnan. He's a volcanologist. And they do make a Star Trek joke in the movie.
I was going to say, study Vulcans.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, he goes around. He tests out pH levels in water, and he goes up into Dante's Peak, a tiny misty mountain town. Job. It seems pretty sweet.
Great. The government pays me to put something in a vial and shake it.
Except when people like just die, which seems to be happening a lot with him lately.
Except for these instances.
So Pierce Brosnan goes up to Dante's Peak, a nice little mountain town. Washington, and the mayor there is Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor herself, single mom. She's just trying to do her best, you know. And what happens? You wouldn't guess, but there's a volcano, and it erupts.
Tell me more.
There's a lot of a Jaws dynamic in this one of Pierce Brosnan trying to tell everybody, no, it's a big deal, and everyone being like, no, it's not a big deal. We can't close down the town. It's 4th of July weekend. What are we gonna do? We got all these visitors coming in, and then
we'll just hire some volcano hunters. It's fine.
Yeah, Twister-esque crew in here.
In the end, they could have used a bigger boat, though.
Yeah, it's true. But then, you know, shenanigans.
We gotta talk about that scene in a bit.
Oh, for sure, man. That's like the scene of that movie. Maybe the scene of both of these movies. Yeah. So there's a little overview for you in case you're not familiar with either of these 90s thrillers. And let's go ahead and start with, what do y'all feel? Dante's Peak or Volcano? What do you want to talk about first?
Well, shall we just, before we get too ahead of ourselves, shall we just declare our personal objective winners?
Oh, perfect. I forgot about that. Yeah, let's say it on 3, I guess. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Dante's
Volcano.
Peak. Oh, whoa. Interesting.
And I've always liked Volcano more.
You know what? This was my first time seeing Dante's Peak, and when we were doing this, in preparation, I was just thinking like, it's fine. I'm sure Dante's Peak is pretty much the same thing as Volcano. And this was my first time seeing it. I put it on, and it's like you were saying, David. It's like Deep Impact. It's done in a different way, but I actually like it better. I think it holds up better too.
I can't wait to get into this conversation with Frank because I think Volcano is like borderline unwatchable. The movie sucks so much.
It's pretty bad.
Interesting.
Dante's Peak, I had a good time. Maybe it's just because I love Pierce Brosnan. You know what I mean? I just imagine I'm watching GoldenEye anytime I see him in a movie. Sometimes it's not for the best, but yeah.
Not my favorite N64 game.
You know, just because you're garbage at it doesn't mean you have to be upset about it. Anyway,
trash.
Why don't we start with Volcano then, since we have a divisive table here.
Yeah. I know, so exciting.
So where to begin?
Tommy Lee Jones, man, the man with the plan, just aggressively delegating the entire time. So fun. You know, these are disaster movies, and I love me a disaster movie. And the important things of the disaster movie, I don't think are so much like science, but the destruction. And that's where Volcano has the edge on Dante's Peak. The destruction is way more satisfying in Volcano, like from start to finish. And I could see that making it like a schlockier Hollywood blockbuster summer, like money grab. But that's exactly what I want out of a disaster movie. I just want things to explode and super nasty.
I would almost argue that there's more destruction in Dante's Peak.
Yeah, and better looking destruction in Dante's Peak.
It holds up. Well, that's kind of the argument is the practical effects versus the CGI effects that don't hold up. And like, you know, in Dante's Peak, I was reading up, but they just did a bunch of practical they did what's it called, model sets.
It's a lot of miniatures.
And they blew it up, and they did minimal CGI work, but overall in terms of the story and the photography, it's like that whole mountainside is just destroyed, and the town's gone, and like there's huge landslides and the dams break and stuff, you know.
Well, it's really important to point out just how different the settings are. I think that's one of the biggest differences in these movies, because Dante's Peak is such a tiny little town that it seems more recognizable, I guess. You can tell what action is going on because there's only like 2 parts. There's like the grandma's house, and then there's like the main town. And maybe it's because I'm not a California boy, but in some of Volcano, I just felt like, okay, lava's flowing down this street. I don't know what's going on. Like, how bad is this? Oh, lava's flowing down another street. You know what I mean?
Basically flowed from... Okay, so it flowed from like downtown LA to right next to the hospital I work at. So it's the Cedars-Sinai, and that's in Beverly Hills. So that would probably be about 10 miles, maybe 5 to 10 miles, I'd say. Mm-hmm. It's going towards the ocean. But I mean, other than that, it didn't really do much. I mean, it obviously like caused gridlock throughout the whole city. It made like blackouts happen.
Yeah.
Well,
where the stakes all over the place,
where the stakes
looting.
really became high on that one is when they realized they had sent all of the patients to the hospital that was in the direct path of the lava, which was really like bad planning.
And
but
it's
I also
funny
think
because
it's
they say
funny
it through
that
the
like
entire beginning of the movie too, like get them to Cedars, send them to Cedars. Like, do you really have to send them all to the one basket? There's so many hospitals in LA.
Well, just like, why not just push it back a little bit further? Like, why go, where's like within a few miles of where you're at? Like, that's the part I don't understand all the way. But I guess they didn't know the full extent of what was going on at the beginning.
Yeah, no one knew it was a volcano, I guess.
Yeah, nobody's ever seen lava move through man-made tunnels before. I think it was for like the line.
That's a cool part of that
movie. Yeah, I do like all the like all the shots of the lava going through like the subway systems and stuff.
Yeah.
And while we're like in the subway tunnels, we have like these two movies have like the same scene. In Dante's Peak, it is Grandma Ruth jumping into the acid lake to like push the boat across. You know what I mean? And in Volcano, it's our bald homie from Zodiac.
From the Jim Carrey show.
Love that guy. He's so much fun. He jumps in.
John Carroll Lynch, right?
John Carroll Lynch. This is the gentleman. Yes, sir.
He jumps off the subway.
Yeah, he jumps off the subway to save that dude, does the toss. Between the two scenes, I much preferred the John Carroll Lynch one.
And it's so close to being that end of Terminator. See?
Yeah.
Like he's melting.
Yeah,
Well,
dude.
he
When he's
melts
just like,
comically fast. He's like the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz. He like evaporates into that lava.
Dude, it's
he,
so
he
dope.
just sinks.
That quick.
He just sinks straight down. It's awesome. I like it too because in that movie in Volcano, you get that early scene of Tommy Lee Jones who somehow keeps backing himself into a corner for like no reason, but he's got to climb on top of that truck. He's like, "Oh man, this truck's on fire. Let me climb on top of it real quick."
It's so dumb.
And then he jumps
Parkour.
off that thing. They put a little bit of slow-mo to make it look really exciting. So you kind of get the idea of that move, and then John Carroll Lynch tries it later, and he's like, they have like a wide shot of it, and there's like 6 feet of lava, and he just lands smack in the middle of it.
It's
It
because
is
he had
so
to
funny.
redeem himself, as far as the
Yeah.
story narrative goes, because he comes in and he's like the loudmouth Trump guy, Trump supporter. It's
Yeah,
just
I
like,
guess.
You know what I mean? It's like, none of this is real. Come on, let me put my monorail system in here.
But okay, let's talk about that Dante's Peak scene though. I remember seeing
alright.
that movie as a kid, and I remember the grandma's sacrifice being so much more necessary. Where in this movie, like when I watched it earlier, it almost seemed like she just fell out of the boat or something. It wasn't even like they were feet away from that dock. She did not
could've
even
jumped
jump
off
off
that
that
so
boat.
close.
Also, why? What the thing is, she like guides the boat there, but she doesn't just jump on the dock right there in the front. She like walks around to the shore.
And she's not
crying the entire time. She's like, ah!
Yeah, and it almost feels like she's half committed to like the bit too. Like it's almost halfway comical the way she's just like,
Yeah, if you haven't seen these movies, this is such a messed up scene to be laughing about. But in this movie, there's a big lake next to the grandma's house, and because of like the sulfur release from the volcano, it's turned the water into acid somehow. I don't know, but
Not accurate.
they're cruising across on a speedboat, and the motor gets eaten up by the acid, and so the grandma decides at the last second to jump out and try and save the family in a totally unnecessary move, and arguably, she slowed the family down some more because
Yeah, a
then
little
they had
bit.
to carry her burned body.
because Pierce Brosnan was pulling it off by I think he had like his jacket wrapped around his hand and he
Yeah.
was kind of like paddling. So if you're ever in a lake full of acid, just a jacket. That's all you need.
your metal
apparently.
boat starts melting. Just put a jacket around your head.
Yeah, James Bond. Yeah, the boat is literally melting. Water's like coming through the seams of this metal boat, and James Bond just pops off his windbreaker and starts paddling through acid, and he's splashing it everywhere. It's getting all over him. It's like, man, this isn't how this works.
And the whole like row your boat cannon thing just gets so awkward.
Well, you know what's funny? I was noticing in that scene that they undercut it with really intense music.
Yeah.
Like I think in editing they were like, this isn't really working. This is coming off like kind of stupid.
Wow, this is much better on the page.
We need to tell everyone, we need to tell the audience what we're going for in this scene with some intense music.
While we're on the boat scene, just because this is going to be a big complaint for me on Dante's Peak, is Sarah Connor's acting. And when the water starts coming into the boat initially, he tells them like, well, it turned the lake into acid. And she goes, acid eats metal. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Just to tell our stupid audience why.
Yeah.
Dang. If only she had written that down for Terminator.
I know, right?
That's a good point, man. Yeah, I think in both movies, and maybe this is just disaster movies in general, there's always that, kind of unnecessary exposition and dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't need to spell out exactly what's going on here.
You could kind of tell. I mean, that might have been like a studio decision for sure. Them just being like, you know what, people are real dumb. And you just go ahead and say,
yeah, people are real dumb.
I'd like to bring up a similarity in both these movies. It's shortly after this lake scene in Dante's Peak, but we get a dog rescue in both movies.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to break the cardinal rule in Dante's Peak. They got real close.
It was really good in Dante's Peak because it's after they get out of that lake and then they have the emotional scene of the grandma dying, and then they get into a car and they're driving, and that's when they see the dog and they have to slow down so the dog can jump in.
Cute little scraggly dog.
But they save that dog, and it's good because the kids are so happy. They've forgotten that like grandma just got melted. You know what I mean? Like, it's an uplifting scene for those kids.
And you don't even have to take them out for ice cream. The dog already solved all the problems.
Kids would much rather have a dog than a grandma. I would say arguably. I mean, let's think about it.
That
more
is
wet
a
kisses,
hot take.
No more like Werther's smells and just having to hug them smelling like old people. And you can just hang out with your dog, throw a ball.
I'm not following you on this one.
Yeah, I for one am happy to have a dog and a grandma.
Can I also toss out? So sorry. In Volcano, though, the dog scene is so much more comical. In Dante's Peak, it's just like a dog on a rock and he jumps into the truck.
Yeah.
In Volcano, it's like this house is surrounded by lava and the dog's inside the house. And then this lady's just calling for him. Come on, boy. Be a good dog. Leave. And you can see the dog like facing the lava. He's all freaked out. But then
Doesn't he get in like an exploding runaway scene too?
He does.
Yeah,
he hops up 100%. The doggy door and the door explodes behind him.
Why did it explode?
Yeah,
and he even goes for like a Indiana Jones moment. He like grabs his bone before he leaves. He's like, and then he takes off.
Yeah, Volcano is super Hollywood. Like,
oh yeah.
Especially the fact that it like takes place in Hollywood. But like, I think
That'll do it.
one of my pet peeves about the movie that I've read a lot of people had also was that the volcano never shows. Like, you never see it fully out of ground. It like pops up a little bit, but it never like has enough of a conical magma eruption to like come above ground.
It's kind of small, the little, because they show it a couple times. They show like a shot of some kind of little cone, but it's really tiny. It looks like a pimple or something. I don't know, but
well, I think part of the problem, it just had so many places to like go. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It had so many outlets, and it being a Hollywood volcano, it's got one of two ways: it'd be super flamboyant and in everyone's face, or it would like lurk beneath the shadows. Everybody thinks everything's fine, but we find out years later things were super messed up.
How about that real forceful brutality white cop?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I wrote it down. It's like the movie almost starts off with this scene of like an angry white cop. Yeah. Like there's like a black guy just like hanging out, and this cop's like, "You want me to get in your face, bro? You'll know when I'm in your face." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." But then the movie takes on this whole like racial equality storyline in this movie.
And they have to like lift up a car together, and it's just like, you know what? Let's just forget our differences.
Well, there's that. There's the part where, you know, those two characters meet up again because the black guy, his like neighborhood's burning down.
He's trying to get firefighters, right?
And then the cop is going to arrest him just because he's asking for help. But then
Stop resisting.
At the movie, we get this really ham-fisted scene where this little kid's like, "Where's my mommy?"
Oh my god,
like,
I forgot about
do you
that.
See,
oh.
do you
Never
see
forget
your
about
mom?
that scene.
And then the little kid's like, "We all look the same," and everyone's got like ash covering their face.
Oh,
and then there's like
so
9
cringe.
shots of groups of people covered in ash. I'm like, wow.
That was an absolute cringe. I completely forgot about that until now.
I think that's the moral of the story, though, that volcanoes bring people together of all races.
They really
Yeah,
do.
the moral of the story is like if we were all facing a super dangerous thing that affected all of us equally, then obviously we'd all pull together, which is not how real life works. Obviously, as we've
definitely
seen.
not. If anything,
especially now, because you know that what's going on in California with like millionaires hiring like private firefighters to like save their homes. I don't think that would even be happening.
what was I going to say? It's also funny to me, like, oh man, I'm totally losing track of what I was just going to say. I was laughing about the firefighters.
Well, maybe I can jog it loose for you. With that scene as well, as heartfelt as it is, I've always thought it really funny that like it's this heartfelt moment. All these people are covered in ash, so like racism has been beaten or something because they're all covered in ash. And there's this heartwarming music playing, but like all those people like probably years later suffered from like mesothelioma or like some terrible lung disease. You know what I mean? That was them like meeting their untimely deaths.
Yeah, and then there's probably like mass homelessness in LA after that,
dude.
and no power for weeks, and like.
And when they were done moving stuff around, I bet that cop beat that black dude.
This is so terrible. I remember what I was going to say now.
Because he knows where he lives now, too. He like knows the neighborhood.
The real moral of the story is, you know, in a desperate situation, just listen to Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's another thing, too. Before that cringy scene you were talking about, David, it's like when they're planning to take one of the towers of cedars down just to like block out the lava. And like, I think some
moment.
guy is just
Here,
like, that takes
diagonally.
weeks to plan. And like correct, and then Tommy Lee Jones is just like, well, we're gonna figure it out.
No, he says like, you want to set a record or something like
you
that.
want to set a record, and it's just like, okay, well, he said that now, so it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That was them saying like, we can't do this scene because people are going to say it's ridiculous. Let's just point it out. If we point it out,
just have a smart guy say it.
can we talk about, man? Okay, Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Hesh, are they supposed to be romantically interested in each other? I was really confused by the mixed signals in this movie because at the beginning, there's a scene where Anne Hesh's friend who dies very early on is like, "Oh, so you like him? Oh, he must like you too," or something.
Oh yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, you get this weird like. It's almost like he gives her a pat on the back kind of thing, like, "You did good, kid." I was really confused about what was happening in that scene. There's like 23 years difference between the two of them, though.
No one believes that she has a doctorate in anything. Like in that entire, no one should talk.
But you're a lady.
Yeah.
The whole first part of that movie. She's just like, but you invited me here.
And then at the end, they even make it a point to be like, she's like, "Yeah, if we'd listened to me, everyone would have died." And he's like, "You know what? You did a good job. Don't beat yourself up there, kiddo. You did a good job today."
Wow.
And you know
See,
what?
what else we-
Too, I can't believe I forgot to talk about this earlier because it's early on in both movies. But both our male protagonists have a scene within like the first 5 minutes of the movie of them like rushing into work or like rushing in a call from work, and their coworkers being like, "What are you doing here, character X? You're supposed to be on vacation. Hey, don't you know how to vacation? It means you don't work." It's so funny that like they're both just like workaholics running into the Call of Duty,
Just chumming it up. Mm-hmm. I like that part in the beginning of Dante's Peak where like it's kind of sad, but I think that part's kind of funny where like the lava rock breaks through the truck and it just hits his wife on the head. I don't know why it was so hilarious.
That's just evil, Danny. I like that scene where that man's wife gets hit in the head with a volcano rock.
I don't know why I started bursting out laughing. It just looked too comical because it just hit perfectly, like right.
Well, what really cracked me up is that's a super like James Bond movie intro where there's like a quick 5-minute scene, just like a little extra adventure. And then just like James Bond, you have to kill off the love interest or get rid of her because there's going to be a new love interest. You know what I'm saying?
That too. And you got to build up revenge, from the main character.
Revenge against the volcano. I hate you, Volcano. You took everything from me.
Is this before or after he was James Bond?
Oh, wait, what were we saying?
Is this before or after he was James Bond?
Oh,
I'd say during.
Is it during?
Dang, this might even be the same year GoldenEye came out. Let me see. No, GoldenEye came out 2 years before. But he's currently James Bond because that was his first of 4 Bond films.
Right. Yeah. Till 2005.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And he used to be in a show where he played a detective, like a James Bond-esque detective. It was like Pierce Brosnan's first big thing. I don't remember what it was called, but that was like he kind of got cast because of that role.
But anyway,
another thing right at the beginning of the movie that's very similar. And again, it's like kind of like from Jaws. They have the early burn victim in both movies. In Dante's Peak, you have like 2 backpackers, 2 out-of-town people.
They go into the pools?
They go into like a hot spring, but then it's like, volcanoes down there. And it just like burns them alive. It like cooks them in there.
Oh, that's right. It's like there's like a whole scene where she goes in like, Jack, what was that noise? And like there's a bubble that comes up through the water. And he's like, oh, it was nothing, Sally. Don't worry about it. And then it happens again.
And then
when she gets in, she's like, it's really hot, and that's why they call it a hot spring.
Well, they even bring it up later too. Like Pierce Brosnan makes that thing about like the frog. Like if a frog is in water and it's boiling, he'll jump out of it. But if it's slowly heated up, I'm like, is that what was supposed to happen with these people? I feel like, well, no, they get pretty instantly cooked. It's like the temperature goes like, whoosh,
it was a huge spike,
and then they're burned. In Volcano, there's another early burn at the beginning of the movie. The first victim. When they're down doing this like maintenance in some sewer thing, and this dude just gets like roasted in there by volcano fire, I guess. That's one thing in Volcano, man. The movie in the volcano in the movie acts like it's like a slasher movie monster or something.
Does. There's a scene in particular that you're talking about too, where like it just killed someone, and then the smoke retreats into the cat crack that it came out of, like somehow without a trace.
And they do one of those like reverse shots, like where they just it sucks itself out, and later they're like lowering a camera down on a cable to see what's going on, and there's nothing down there, and the volcano's like, surprise, y'all, I'm here.
And like, I'm gonna wait till she puts her face right over the crack, and then I'm gonna boom.
Oh man.
That part's ridiculous. But it also like roars like a lion too.
Yeah. This is one thing that really bothers me about Volcano is that the volcano is like personified. It's like it's got motives, and it's trying to do like jump scares. Whereas in Dante's Peak, it's just a volcano. You know what I mean? It's just a shy one is all. They're not showing anything.
I almost wonder if like part of the personification of the volcano being like a slasher in Volcano is that it might have been like after Backdraft, because I get major Backdraft vibes from like the beginning of
I could
Volcano,
see that.
you know what I mean, where the fire is just like a killer. You got to watch out for that fire.
I've never seen Backdraft. I've only played the mini game on Universal Studios for GameCube. That's the only Backdraft experience I have.
Have you ever been to Universal, David?
Yeah, I have.
Have you been to the Backdraft thing?
I don't think so.
It's like on the back.
It's pretty intense. You can like feel the heat coming off
intense.
of it.
Is it still there? Or is it something that they got rid of?
It might still be. I think it is. I think part of it is.
Okay, because I only went once, and it was like in 2008, I think.
You know what? No, I think they changed it into the. No, I think it's still there. I'm gonna say it's still there.
Okay, I'll have to
Final answer.
Go.
Final answer.
Let me see. Oh, did you guys spot that Wilhelm scream in Dante's Peak?
No, I missed it.
Oh.
It's when Paul dies. The guy who's
right.
I think he is. He keeps telling Pierce Brosnan, no, you can't be doing this. You can't just do this off a hunch. And then There's this scene of like a pretty cool scene too of like the river rising,
dude.
And there's like a broken house in the river, and it's like hitting this bridge as they're driving over it. And the naysayer, he has to get his comeuppance. He just like John Carroll Lynch, he's not allowed to live.
And you know, one thing that I took away from Dante's Peak is that the people in that town and just everyone in that film in general trusts bridges. They trust bridges way too much.
Never trust a bridge.
Throughout that entire movie, I'm just like, the first thing they flock to is the bridges, and then they go to the overpasses to get onto the freeway, and then they go to another bridge.
and you know, when that overpass, there's a scene of when everyone's first evacuating in Dante's Peak, they're getting onto the overpass, and then the whole overpass just like crumbles, and it looks really good. It's the miniature work is really nice and really detailed, but I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening to all these people?
There's some several moments in there I was like, wow, this looks really good. Like, especially like, so apparently they like built the peak itself in a soundstage in LA that was like 150 feet tall or something like that. And so they used miniature work to make it look like that. It's essentially supposed to be like Mount Rainier in Seattle or something. It's like this big dormant volcano, but it looks just like Mount Rainier too. So and they did that with.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They did. What'd you say?
I said no. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry. I keep trying to get a
pause you real quick.
It's because I have this stupid duck, so I keep trying to wait for like a spot to come in, but like
quack.
My comments like 3 minutes behind in the conversation. It's the worst.
If you have a duck, you should take it outside, Frank. It probably doesn't want to be cooped up in your room.
Oh, thanks. That's good advice, David. This is very helpful.
But back to Dante's Peak, I was just saying like. The miniature work is amazing, but yeah, the people just trust the bridges way too much. Like the first one goes down, and then it's the same characters that witnessed the first one go down. They go to the next one, and and then it just does it again. Oh, okay, you switched over.
No, it's that my camera got blurry, so I had to unplug and plug it back in.
I was like, alligator.
Alligator? Yeah, you guys saw my gator for a little bit.
Yeah, that totally threw me off.
I don't know. I personally enjoyed the destruction in Dante's Peak a little bit more. The acting's a little bit better in Dante's Peak almost for me too. Even that's
man, there's some bad acting in Dante's Peak. That's one of my biggest complaints about it. But while we're on the bridges and before we get too far away, while I have the floor, I'll just never stop talking once I start talking. The thing about Paul's death that really bugged me was like they're all standing outside. They realize it's time to go. He's watching everybody jump into these super dope Humvees, and he's like, "All right, we're getting out of here. All right, okay, let me jump into this crappy van that like would not even be good for driving up a hill. This is what I'm going to use to like escape in this, but already on a normal day seems like some pretty tough terrain to like get through like in that stupid van. Why didn't this guy jump in the Humvee? Like everything would have been fine. He would have been alive.
The funniest thing too is like
to die. Yeah. Maybe there was valuable equipment in there. I don't know.
I was trying to justify it too because I saw him get into that bus, and when they started driving off with the Humvees, I was just like, "Why did anyone take that bus?" I just assumed that there were other people in that bus.
Only one.
That's why he was driving it. Nope, just one guy in a 13-passenger bus. It's just like, and he won't get out and jump off of the land too. Like he could have gotten out way earlier.
Yeah, there was a point when he was on that bridge, stuck in that car, that he could have just gotten out of the car and like walked across the rest of the bridge.
And everyone was out of the car looking at him.
Yeah, no one was like, just jump, man. Yeah, that is pretty tasty. Oh, you know, one of the big thing in Dante's Peak, just something I thought looked really awesome, is when they crashed that helicopter. Like it looked really good.
You do gotta love a good helicopter crash.
Yeah. That was good stuff.
The dam collapse looked really cool too.
Yeah, the dam collapse looked really good too. Which also made me wonder, like, is all that water acid water? Like, is it just that little lake that has acid water? I was confused about what water was acidified and which one wasn't.
I'm not sure. There's a bunch of dead fish all over the place.
I think it would depend on like the proximity to like a vent or something like that, and that's based off of like a blind guess.
That just sounds right in my head, so I'm putting it out here.
Yeah.
Something about these two movies. This is something I picked up on. Maybe I'm stretching here a little bit. But there's a little bit in these two movies about what are humans' reaction to extreme natural events. And in Dante's Pink, it's basically like, there's nothing we can do. We have to leave.
Helpless.
And in Volcano, it's kind of like, nah. What's this? Volcano's going to tell us what? No, we're going to take care of this.
Nah, we're Americans.
And this is actually, it's the same mentalities that we have in Deep Impact and Armageddon. In Armageddon, it's like, we'll just go up there and blow the whole thing up. Whereas in Deep Impact, yes, that's the plan, but really the plan is, let's burrow underground because there's no way we can avoid what's going to happen to us. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And I think in Volcano, it just comes off like, because at one point the plan in Volcano is to use those cement barriers to channel the lava. But before that, you see the lava like tearing through buildings, which you would assume would have concrete in them somewhere. So it's like, why doesn't it burn these tiny little pieces of concrete?
And they're like trying to put a bus to like move the lava flow too, and it's just like, but it's ripping through the street anyway. But
we just saw it melt and evaporate a truck like 30 minutes earlier. So like, how much time is this buying you?
Yeah. But buses are bigger than trucks.
and then Tommy Lee Jones is like, all right, guys, go ahead. Cops, get on the other side, blow out those tires. And then like 14 cops line up with their pistols drawn.
Yeah, I saw that.
Get them! The bus has a gun. And then they just unload. It's like, man, you guys could have really hurt somebody. There were people standing on the other side of the bus. You had a bunch of firefighters on the other side of the bus, and they're just unloading their clips. It was like, no one has a knife?
Yeah, it's really not going to take that much.
You gotta let those guys blow off some steam, man. There's all this panic and crazy stuff going on. They hadn't had a chance to pull their guns out in quite some time at that point.
Right? There's all these black guys around them and stuff. They're scared.
Yeah, you need to let them blow off some steam so they can focus on the task ahead.
It feels like this movie should have been made in like 91 or something, though, with how topical the race relations of the LAPD have with the general public.
If they really wanted to be smart about it, they could have tossed some Will Smith in there too.
Dang,
that would have been great.
Just like a Men in Black spinoff. In this one, they just fight volcanoes.
Yeah, be super nice.
You're right, though. There's definitely like a respect for nature in Dante's Peak and a like fight against nature in Volcano.
Yeah, right. In Volcano, they're like, we can do this. We could totally do this. Whereas, man, I feel like if there was really an underground volcano in LA and it erupted, there would just be no chance whatsoever. No. It would just like obliterate like square block.
I mean, that's what shows it in Dante's Peak. Like at the end, the climax of all of it is that what it's called, pyroclastic.
Yeah, pyroclastic cloud. Yeah,
and it's just it's an atomic bomb.
Yeah,
and it's like if that would have happened in the LA volcano and just obliterated city for miles.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. While we're just talking about everything blowing up, I didn't like the miniature stuff. I feel like it was really obvious that they were miniatures. And you know what gives it away, actually? It's like the vehicles. It's the way the vehicles like fly off in one piece instead of like breaking when the impact hits them. Like there's like some little forklifts and some trucks that it hits. And it almost looks like they're on a wire. Like they're like totally still just kind of flying across like in a super weird pattern. And they're not like breaking. And I think that's what gives it away. But yeah, like when I was rewatching, I was just like, damn, those are miniatures. And I had to go back and 100%. I feel like they stick out a little bit for sure.
Maybe I need to pay more attention to the cars. I thought the miniature stuff looked great. I mean,
thought it looked great too. I was all about it.
It doesn't look perfect, but it looks better than those like CGI rocks the volcano's spitting out. Like it's playing a video game or something. It's like, oh, you see that car over there? And it like shoots out a volcano rock and blows it up.
You get that like gag from Volcano from the like earlier when the volcano's sending its mortars, you know what I mean? Because that's how warfare goes. The like geologist has like that flashback when she hears the whistle again, and it's just somebody like brewing tea, and she's like, oh.
She's got PTSD.
What movie is it? I think it's Volcano, where they're driving a car and like half of the hood gets smashed in, but smashed so far in that it's like that would destroy the engine block.
Volcano, I'm pretty
that
sure.
is Volcano. I'm pretty sure it's Tommy Lee Jones driving this car, but it's like
I thought
it's so smashed in that it's like there's no engine in this car because there's what's going on.
That the like entire maybe beginning part of the disaster in Dante's Peak was just essentially like a Chevy Silverado commercial.
Until even when they have to drive it over those lava rocks and then it's somehow still okay for a little bit, I'm like, no, man, this isn't.
They're in like the river. And it's like up to the windows, and obviously he's got like that snorkel or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's just like, "We'll never make it," and he's like, "No, they won't make it. This car will."
And they're like, there's all these people around them. It's like all these people are gonna die.
They just drive straight into the water. It's like,
They're like, no.
Well, they should have bought a snorkel, David. And if you don't want to die, you better buy a snorkel. I love how they get that like nice clean shot of it with like the brand name.
Yeah.
And so it was like a Silverado commercial, and then that genius plan goes amoot when it's like midway through the river. He's like, "Oh wait, there's like sediment here. I can't get any traction in my tires."
And Pierce Brosnan has no idea how deep this river is. You know what I mean? He just guns it down that hill. He's like, "Nah, we'll get through this."
Plus, it's in Washington. That's got to be like 10-degree water or something like that.
Well,
My water's cold over there, man.
It's a particularly warm day, though. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not thinking about the temperature at that point.
Can we talk about the crew in Dante's Peak? He's got a crew of literally. They seem like the cast of Twister. Like it's almost like an SNL spoof. But man, one of those dudes is so obsessed with coffee. There's like a scene where he just says coffee like 15 times.
Greg, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Grant Heslov.
He's like, coffee? She's bringing coffee? Oh, I love coffee. I mean, it's always important to have good coffee. And then he gets the coffee. He's like, this is good coffee. Jeez, man. Relax, dude. You don't need any more coffee.
Probably on a cocaine kick.
There's also there's an Asian guy who's a member of this team, and he's in the campaign. He plays Mr. Zhang, who
he's also,
I'm guessing is some kind of special interest in that movie. I don't really remember where there was an Asian man named Mr. Zhang in campaign, and we just watched it.
I also don't remember an Asian man.
Particular Asian actor, like as soon as I saw him, I recognized him, and it wasn't. It's funnily enough, it wasn't from the movie we just watched. It wasn't from the campaign. It was like, hey, that's the Prime Minister of China in Rush Hour.
He's Consul Han is his name.
Yeah, Consul Han in Rush Hour.
he's in Rush Hour. He's the guy they're trying to protect, right? And one more little random thing. The little girl in Dante's Peak, the daughter, she's in Weeds for a couple episodes. It's a later season where Silas and Andy are trying to make money when they're living in that van or bus or whatever. And then Silas gets tied up. I forgot how it happens, but he ends up going to a college for a little bit and pretending he's a student. And he meets a girl there that he gets involved with. That's that girl.
How weird.
She's in a little subplot of Weeds for a couple episodes.
Weird. I wouldn't have spot that out.
I was just perusing IMDb as I was watching these things.
Oh, there was another cameo. Well, not really a cameo, but just like a small actor role in Volcano. The lady that Tommy Lee Jones gets to babysit his daughter, who's probably too old for a babysitter, is Alana's mom from Broad City, and she's also Susie Green in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, she looks way better back then. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
That's
I almost
crazy.
didn't recognize her, but the voice and the attitude, I was like, who is
That's
this?
Susan. That's Susan.
That girl in the movie seems almost like she's too old for the role because the way it's written, they keep talking about her like she's a little girl. Yeah. Like the way that Tommy Lee Jones keeps talking about it, like she's like 10 or something, but she's obviously like 16 or 17.
They're talking about her like she's as old as she was when they were doing Uncle Buck.
Yeah, exactly. Or like if they originally had booked the little girl from Dante's Peak, but then she was like, nah, I want to be in the one with Pierce Brosnan. I want to meet James Bond. And then she left that movie.
Funny when like she gets hurt at like the first instance of the volcano coming out with Tommy Lee Jones, and he's like helping people at the scene, and he saves her on the truck and stuff. And he finally gets her to that doctor, and he's like, get her to Cedars. Obviously, get her to say it again. But then she's just like, no, Dad, I'm going to stay here with you. I have to stay here with you. And everyone that was watching that movie, including myself, was probably like, "You're useless.
Yeah.
Get out of here!" Like, what are you
You
gonna
already
do?
got hurt. You're bad at this.
If anything, I feel like writing wise, that scene should have been like, "Don't leave me, Dad. Come with me." You know what I mean? And then him having to be like, "No, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't leave. I have to do this. You need to be brave for me." Tiny little girl who's clearly way too old for this role.
Well, they were in a pinch. That's what it was. They were in a pinch on the day of shooting because originally she was supposed to say, "Oh, Daddy, don't leave me, please." But then this actress ended up being way too old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they had to write something on the spot.
It's those growth spurts, man. That's why you can't hire young actresses and actors. It's just rough. The growth spurts. Let me see what. Oh, there's a couple scenes that I still have in my notes I want to talk about. There's one in Volcano. This goes back to the volcano acting like a sentient deity or something. But there's a moment where they're talking, this guy's like on the phone and he's like yelling, he's like, the volcano, it's screaming over here, everything's so loud. And then like all the sound cuts out and everyone's like, what? And then the volcano comes back, surprise, blah. But my problem with this scene is like,
fool, you haven't seen my full power.
They cut all the audio out, but then they still show firefighters with this giant hose blasting this building. It's like, shouldn't just the sound of water be going on? Like if the sound design gag is to show that the volcano's backed off, why is all of the effects in the movie, like all they did was just turn the volume knob on the mix down and then they were like, dun dun dun, we're back.
Yeah, it's some
just
lazy
seems so
sound
weird to me.
engineering there.
Isn't that scene also where there's like this news reporter just hanging out in his car for like an hour, just like reporting everything he sees around him while not helping anyone out? He sees someone like clearly gonna die and he's just like reporting it.
That's
Well, if
LA,
he goes
baby.
to help that guy, who's going to report about it, man?
Good point. That's how that Situation Room kept getting like second by second update, was because of that reporter sitting in his car not helping anyone.
No, I can't help you. I'm too important.
There's one other, at least one more scene for me that I want to talk about. There's a scene right at the end of Dante's Peak, and this is so cheesy, but Pierce Brosnan, they get trapped in that mine, which they introduce in the very beginning of the movie. And obviously you don't have a mine in your town in Act 1 that you don't hide in Act 3. You know what I'm saying? So they're in the mine at the end. They crash in there to avoid the volcano, the pyroclastic cloud. And Pierce Brosnan, the kids are worried, and so is Sarah Connor. And Pierce Brosnan's like, well, you know what? When we get out of here, we're all going to go deep sea fishing. Have you guys ever been deep sea fishing? I haven't either, but let's all go together. And just then I could see the ending of the movie of them like in a bunch of floppy hats on a boat, like casting out like that. Him showing the little girl how to cast her fishing pole, and then like a slow pan out, while they're in the water. And then there's a giant squid under the water. No, I'm just joking. But that's like the ending that you see. They don't go that far with it, but it just seemed like two things. First off, this should have been something they brought up at the beginning of the movie, not like 10 minutes before the movie ends. It should have been like something he brought up in the beginning, like talking about fishing and the kids being like, oh, what's that? But the second thing is, that little girl has no interest in deep sea fishing, and I don't know why they're trying to make us believe that some tiny little girl is going to be interested.
Come on, we'll go deep sea fishing. It'll be fine.
Sure, strange man that I've known.
Every now and then you meet like a weird kid, you know what I mean?
He's like, yeah,
That's true.
we'll go deep sea fishing. We'll go to Vegas, pick up some hookers. Have a great time.
And then again, though, like Dante's Peak, if that's what they were going for, they could have had a scene at the very beginning of the movie where maybe Pierce Brosnan meets the kids and the kids are sitting out at the lake at Grandma's house fishing. You know what I mean? Like something to just show us, instead it just seems like Pierce Brosnan wants to go deep sea fishing and now he's just trying to make a moment out of it.
No,
Like,
yeah, I
he's
did
just-
also think that was weird. I put it down in my notes. Just like,
Yeah,
why are we
it's just-
talking about fishing right now?
Right? It seems strange. Why not because he's like, have you all ever been to Florida? How about have you guys ever been to Disneyland? Something that two
Have you
little
guys
kids
ever
would
heard
get
of
really
bath
excited about?
salts?
Have you guys ever been to a retirement village before?
Jesus Christ.
Hey, what's going on? One of you is supposed to be the numbers daddy, and we're all the way in this episode, and I've had no numbers.
So
I've relinquished to the stat daddy.
if numbers is what you want, numbers is what you're gonna get. As soon as I'm done doing a little bit of scrolling here for Volcano, we were working with an estimated budget of $90 million US million dollars. We got an opening weekend of 14.5 if you want to be just a little more exact. We grossed 49,000. Wait, that can't be right. No,
49 million.
49 million US worldwide gross of 122.8 million. Nice little chunk of change for Volcano there in the grand scheme of things.
Ooh, can I just say that's not fantastic, right? That's a scary opening weekend, and that's like barely sliding by.
I mean, they made enough to like people didn't come to break their kneecaps, so I guess okay outcome.
And then you know what's weird though? I think because it didn't do well, there's no US Blu-ray. Like you can only buy a European Blu-ray of the movie, and on eBay they start at like $45 for the Blu-ray of this flick. I think it's one of those out of print and kind of forgotten about movies.
Wow,
is that Dante's Peak?
This is Volcano.
That's Volcano, which I mean just goes to show that it's going to be cooler for the hipsters in like 15, 20 years.
Hold on to your VHS copies, everybody.
Yeah. On the flip side, for Dante's Peak, we were working with an estimated budget of $116 million. Had an opening weekend of $18.4 million. Grossed $67 million in the U.S. and a worldwide gross of $178.1 million.
Ooh, that's a good return.
I mean, that's a slightly better opening.
Yeah.
But it made it up. It made a bigger impact worldwide. It seems like
a deeper impact, if you will.
And you would think that some of this budget too. Well, you have two pretty big actors for the time, for sure. Although I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is a big name as well. But I think a lot of that miniature stuff had to go into this too, like building all those really, building the mountain. I'm sure that was a big cost.
I feel like. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just talking out of my butt here, but a lot of I do that a lot. Practical effects in general tend to be cheaper than computer effects, computer-generated effects.
Not necessarily true, and sometimes it's more cost effective to go with CGI. I guess it would depend on the effect in particular. And like how big of an effect.
I wonder if that means in the time period too, though, because 90s CGI probably was hecka expensive.
But one thing, and I was just reading this in this issue of Fangoria that I just picked up. They were talking about how if you choose to do practical effects, that a shoot can become much longer. So like say you have a scene where some guy's getting ripped apart by zombies. You shoot that scene, you squirt blood all over the whole set, but then you need a second take. It's going to take you hours to clean up all that blood, reset, and shoot again, whereas you could do a bunch of takes and just digitally add the blood in. So in this case, they're destroying these sets at the end of Dante's Peak. You might only have one good take. Unless you have a whole separate, you know what I mean? You got to have backups of all the little miniatures you've made in order to give it a second go. Totally. And if something gets real messed up, it's time consuming, which is expensive, but then also you have to like make it again too. So
there's a level of care that has to go with it. Like I think when I was watching the special, the behind the scenes on Dante's Peak on the internet, they were saying like, especially like the dam scene and stuff, they set up so many cameras from every different angle because there was a one done take. Like, they're not gonna do it again.
Yeah, we don't have the time, money, or capabilities to do this again. That's kind of crazy, man.
Yeah, I guess it's just dependent on what time period it was, the length of the CGI and the special effects. But I can also agree with you. Also, they had a recent and current James Bond actor in there. I'm sure he was about 58 million of the 116 million.
Yeah, that's a good question too, because like Volcano has a stacked group, but I don't think Don Cheadle was particularly a big actor at the time.
Not back then.
If anything, Anne Hesh was probably a pretty big deal. who now is like totally forgotten about
You
actress.
probably get her on the cheap now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don Cheadle's the biggest one from that movie now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is kind of like an American staple, but I mean, you also got John Carroll Lynch. You also have Keith David, who we didn't talk about, who's in Volcano. He's a pretty big actor, although not usually in a lead role.
He's
Good
in more
character
things
actor.
than we can all name. He's in like everything.
Those are some good budget numbers, Frank. Do you have the review stats, Stat Daddy?
So review stat wise, Volcano got a 5.5 out of 10 on the IMDb, and a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
Dante's Peak just did a little bit better on IMDb with a 5.9 out of 10, and got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 26%.
Yikes!
Wow, that's pretty
very
different.
divisive.
I think I can get it. I mean, I don't think Dante's. Well, first off, all of the Doppelganger movies we've done, none of them have been like fantastic movies.
No.
Because I feel like most of the movies that fall in this category are like these disaster movies or just like summer blockbusters.
Yeah,
that
how
are
good
usually-
can a movie be if two people had the same idea at the same time?
Yeah, good point. So shoot, I mean, I think more than ever, we encourage y'all to check these two out, or if you've already seen them, which one do you prefer? I feel like Volcano, I felt like I had seen it when I was younger, and then when I watched it again today, I was like, man, I don't know if I know this movie or not. But Dante's Peak, that was a trip down memory lane for me.
Yeah. This is my first time seeing Dante's Peak, and it's pretty sweet. It's still really sweet. I'd always skipped over it because, I wasn't familiar with it. It didn't have like a huge following back when I was growing up, I guess. But it's solid. It's solid. I've seen Volcano here and there like throughout my lifetime. But I will say that checking out the Rotten Tomatoes beforehand was like, oh man, I don't know if I need to see if I want to watch this movie and enjoy it. But it was good. It was a good surprise.
I've seen both of these movies a number of times. Disaster movies are like a favorite genre of mine for sure. So both of these movies I've just seen over and over and over again. And for me, both of them are like the IMDb scores, the closeness make a lot of sense to me, because for both of these movies, they're all just like little moments that I remember from each one. It's all just like a collection of these like kind of cool moments and movies that like as a whole like aren't great like either of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is just a purely objective thing for me. I lean towards Volcano for my love of Tommy Lee Jones and probably my hate of Pierce Brosnan for being involved with James Bond.
Well, you never shook Pierce Brosnan's hand, so there's a big.
Yeah, I didn't. That is
Well,
true.
I guess it's time to kick it over to Character Limit Extended.
Woo.
The segment where we take a movie that we talked a little bit about and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, something like that.
I think I'm getting closer. I don't know if we've completely we haven't written it down yet.
It still hasn't
the
been
issue.
written.
Yeah, we're still working it out. It's like a stand up. So we did a review of Son-in-Law, now available on the David and Frankenbeans YouTube channel, which maybe we should just change to Uninformed Movie Reviews, although that really puts Brandon out.
He's got to get with the program,
Uninformed Movie / comic book reviews.
/ movie commentary tracks.
There's no help in it at this point. I mean, if anything, that fits in with Uninformed Movie Reviews. But I'm getting off topic here. So we watched the Pauly Shore classic in
Fair.
his canon. I think it was like the third Pauly Shore film. If I'm recalling this information correctly to me, I'm going to look it up here. But we kind of have that character, the Weasel, which Frank talked about in his review. Pauly Shore's persona, I guess. And well, why don't I kick it to one of you guys to start it off with? How about Danny? I know.
How about Frank?
Okay, Frank, go ahead and kick us off here. You were the one who
You're
called
the most
for this.
knowledgeable on this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, I'll try to make it as brief as possible because I could probably go on forever, because this is another movie that I've just watched over and over again. And honestly, most of Pauly Shore's filmography I've just like beaten to death, and I'll keep watching them. Somebody's got to. But Son-in-Law, you know, if you haven't seen it yet, I like I said in my review, I highly recommend. Really fun fish out of water story with Pauly Shore, the weasel. Poor Pauly Shore, man, he really like he got stuck in his persona, you know what I mean? That's what people got used to seeing. They didn't want to see him do anything else, but they also got really tired of it. And it's not like he didn't want to do anything else. He just got kind of stuck doing this thing he got famous for doing. Very unfortunate. He's still trying out there. If you follow Pauly Shore, it's just like really sad all the time. Dude, poor guy.
I looked at Pauly Shore's like YouTube page, and I feel like there's a couple videos on there that like we might have more views than he does on some of these videos.
I feel like he's doing fine though. Like him and his family own the Comedy Store here on
which will soon be closed down because of
he's
coronavirus.
Probably not doing too hot right now.
No, yeah, like he still tours and stuff like that. Like for you and me, we'd be stoked with the amount of like work and stuff that he's getting right now, but that's not what Pauly Shore wants. Pauly Shore wants to like star in movies. Like that's what he likes doing.
I don't know if you guys ever listened to that episode, but there's an episode of Joe Rogan Experience where Pauly Shore comes on, and it is so depressing. And Pauly Shore is just talking about how like basically he was doing the weasel bit, and even his managers were like, hey, you know, you need to switch it up. Maybe you shouldn't do In the Army now. Maybe you're going like a little too far with this bit. And he was like, no, let's do it. And then basically his deal, he had a 3-movie deal with Disney. And once that deal was up, the calls stopped coming. And that was it, man. That was it for Pauly Shore.
Wow.
It's real sad.
Yeah, dude.
That is pretty sad.
Yeah, it's a rough story, man. But I've always liked, like, I don't know, I'm into silly things, you know what I mean? And this is quite a silly one, and it's not silly to the point of like, oh God, I gotta watch this stupid movie, but I genuinely feel like this is a heartfelt good time, man.
It's time. It's fun. It was a fun watch. Like I feel like I had to watch it because I've avoided this movie for my whole life, pretty much.
You know what threw me off? I think there's something in a review where you're saying that we've been bugging you for like 5 years to watch this. I feel like it's only been like
maybe 3.
No, I think it was like the beginning of this year. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, Frank's told me to watch this movie quite a while.
I'm sure.
No, I mean like specifically in the realms of reviewing it for the channel, because I remember having the conversation with Frank when he first brought it up, and we were like, we'll sneak it in. Danny will forget about it.
You know what? I think I did try last year. I think I did try getting him in.
I think so. I just wasn't actively. Well, no. Yeah. No, I don't know. I probably wasn't part of the conversation, but I have been bugged to watch this movie at least. But it's fun. I mean, as far as Pauly Shore movies go, like it's pretty good. Like you can't really have a bar set too high. You know, my favorite Pauly Shore role is the one in an animated movie, and I've said that before in the Goofy movie. But I also love Biodome. And
oh God, yeah.
And like Biodome is hilarious, and I also think that Encino Man is amazing too. Like Encino Man is like one of my favorite movies, and that's why I was like in my review, I was just saying like that was the coolest part of this movie to me was it's like, oh my God, it's in the same universe.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't know you liked those other movies. I'm surprised you were so hesitant. I feel like they're all kind of the same. You know what I mean? Like they're different, but
yeah, Biodome.
Pauly Shore is just Pauly Shore.
Yeah. This movie didn't age well for sure, but it's still pretty funny. It's got its moments.
Well, you know, actually, that was one thing that surprised me. I thought that it had aged surprisingly okay. Like,
same.
There's some things where there's like some maybe slightly homophobic jokes, but for early 90s, you kind of expect that, like that kind of gag that people think he's gay and that's funny for some reason. But Pauly Shore's, even his like weird character, like his weird California lingo and everything, as all those people describe it in the movie, I thought that it still works today. It doesn't feel super dated. And you know, to me, Adam Sandler has aged way worse than this. And I think it's weird that culturally people are still down with like Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. They're still like, oh, those movies are great. I love watching them. but that character has aged so much worse. The Adam Sandler, like, whatever he calls
I hate that. Yeah, I don't know what he calls it.
Yeah, I would much rather watch one of these movies over an early Adam Sandler movie, like any day of the week.
So there were two other cameos. I don't know if you guys caught them in Son-in-Law, but we also got a little bit of Flea as the tattoo artist, like out on the beach, and Adam Goldberg as the Indian in the costume party. And I never noticed that until this last rewatch. I was just like chilling, watch the movie, and I was like, hold on, and I had to like go back and rewind. Sure enough.
He's in it for all of like 5 seconds. He's in there so quick, man. You can miss it easily.
Yeah. I totally slipped my mind. Huh.
Some other characters that we have in here. We got Tiffany Thiessen, who is from Saved by the Bell. Kelly Kapowski.
Yeah.
She plays like a very questionable young lady in this movie. There's like a scene where, if you've never seen Son-in-Law, basically Carla Gugino of Haunting series fame,
Smoke Show,
is she's like a college freshman. She goes off to college. She's from a small farming town, and then she meets Pauly Shore, who's the crazy California liberal wacko, and she comes back home. Yeah, he's the RA. She comes back home. This is part of the movie that makes no sense to me. Like how she thinks, oh, let me show up in like a fishnet top. Like even if it was a transformative experience, that first month and a half of college that she was at, you would think that she would at least be like, well, I'm going back home. My parents they're not going to want to see me dressed like this. I need to find appropriate attire. But all that aside, Tiffany Thiessen is one of her friends, and she's got a boyfriend that she's left at home. This is what I'm forgetting. And the boyfriend, he proposes, and she doesn't want to get married, so instead she lies and says she's already engaged to Pauly Shore, which right off the bat, this is
that's not exactly what happens though. Like that's not. You make it sound like it was a formulaic plan where she's really just trying to figure out a way to put it off. He springs it on him. She does nothing, so Pauly Shore, being kind of an idiot, decides, I already asked her to marry me.
Yes. Yeah, that's a better description of it. But it still doesn't make the plan make any sense whatsoever. And
no, it's a horrible plan.
The very next day, she could have just told her parents when it was just them at home, hey, this is what's going on. I really just don't want to get married right now, which it seems like the parents would be totally behind, given how the movie ends. But that just strikes me as so strange. But it's just one of these things. You have to get past the plot in this movie because there's like so many holes in it. There's so many reasons why things shouldn't be happening. You kind of just have to go for the humor, which I think a lot of it is there. I think there's still some really good jokes in there.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would also. Oh, shout!
I think that's gonna
wrap it up for a character limit extended. Yeah.
I did just want to shout out one more person before we end it up, but the dad in this movie, Lane Smith, he's the scummy mayor in Red Dawn, and I just love it because I hate that character so much in Red Dawn, and in this movie he's so lovable, and he has the most cringy line at the end of this movie when he talks about munching on some grindage. Yeah, it is the cringiest moment I've ever seen in a film.
God.
Ooh.
And you know what? They give the grandpa one too. The grandpa gets some like dude speak in there. That one's pretty bad too.
He calls Pauly Shore a buff dude. Like, okay. Oh man.
Delightful.
Well, I guess that wraps it up with character limit extended. I just had to get that one right.
Wow, it was a really good echo effect.
Thank you.
What plugin was that?
That was me. That was Danny Boy. I guess that brings us on out to... Oh, that's interesting.
How interesting, Danny.
This will be my... I'm just going to go ahead and go with the number 4th.
Just stop counting them because it's always wrong.
I'm going to say 4th. I'm going to stick with 4th.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna have to go back and like find a tally just so I can edit it in here. It's actually 6.
Right. Yeah, the next podcast you'll know the tally by for sure. Y'all, I'm coming in with a hot article here, hot off the presses. I think it was today that I saw this. Maybe yesterday.
It's like this morning.
It is as of this morning. It's being reported by a number of sources, including New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, you name it. All them liberal papers. This is pretty cool. This is called
What a tease.
a weird. Here's the headline: A weird monolith is found in the Utah desert. Bow, 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 bow.
Dun 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 dun.
Anyways, so we're obviously alluding to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which really this inspired. However, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. The synopsis: A team surveying bighorn sheep for Utah's Wildlife Agency found the strange object 10 to 12 feet tall, embedded in the ground in a remote part of Red Rock Country. It's probably art, officials said.
And that's the end of the story, everybody. Thanks for coming in.
The article.
News.
Wow, that was interesting, Danny. All right, so Peeps and Predicaments. No, I was joking.
Yeah, just to get into it a little bit. Let's see. At the base of a barren slot canyon in Utah's Red Rock Country, a team that was counting bighorn sheep by helicopter spotted something odd and landed to take a closer look. It was not sheep.
Do you think they have trouble like falling asleep on the job, like counting all those sheep?
Like sheep just don't help them anymore. In fact, it keeps them more awake because it's their job.
Danny's like stressful. They can't think about sheep and go to sleep.
It was a 3-sided metal monolith, about 10 to 12 feet tall, planted firmly in the ground with no clear sign of where it came from or why it was there.
Interesting. Bum, bum.
The Utah Department of Public Safety, revealing its existence to the wider world on Monday, said the team found an, quote, unusual object last week in southeastern Utah.
By wider world, do you think they're referring to America because of our adult obesity problem?
That's obviously what they meant coming out to.
It's a good documentary title, Frank. You should write that one down.
Quote, while on this mission, they spotted an unusual object and landed nearby to investigate further. Quote, end quote. The department said in a statement, open quote. The crew said there was no obvious indication of who might have put the monolith there. The object was found in a remote area that Aaron Bott, a spokesman for the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, described as rugged and very rocky, with many canyons and potential hazards. Quote, it's a tough place to get on vehicle and on foot, he said. So
I believe a local man was quoted as saying, y'all want to see a leprechaun? Say yeah, yeah.
Say yeah.
This is I mean, if it's not aliens, first off, which we can't cross that out, then it's some like art installation.
Yeah.
Dude, this picture of the two officials, like one of them standing on the other one's shoulders and he's just kind of looking on top of it like, I mean, there's nothing up here either.
It's a picture right here.
This is the confusing thing to me. They're reporting it's 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
You guys just don't know yet?
Yeah. Well,
like you didn't measure it?
It keeps swelling and shrinking.
They probably did it based on the 2-man theory, you know? They got one guy on his shoulders and he's like, well, that's about 6-ish feet.
But more importantly, those guys don't know how tall they are. You know what I mean? Like when you get an accurate
you could have easily calculated there.
That throws me off a bit.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's not solid black like the monolith, but it's pretty cool. It doesn't look nearly as wide.
Well, that's my other thing. I'm poo-pooing on this, but okay. So it is. We're just gonna say it is an arts installation, right? That's probably more likely thing.
That's most likely what it is.
So then, either this guy has never seen 2001: Space Odyssey, or B, he had the idea to do this inspired by Space Odyssey, but then didn't go through and make it look like the one from Space Odyssey. It's like not the right color, and it's 3 sides apparently. See, I couldn't tell from the picture.
I think the monolith is also slimmer. It's more like a rectangle, if anything.
Well, it looks. Are you talking about the Space Odyssey one or the?
Yeah, the monolith. This monolith looks more like an obelisk or whatever. You know, it's more
the one in Space Odyssey is rectangular for sure. It's a rectangular prism, and it's black. A bit of a bummer. It feels like he went all out on this. He couldn't spray paint it.
It could have been, or like,
if you look at the.
I was gonna say, or just like not even spray paint, but just polish that thing down, make it real shiny. Give it a mirror finish.
If you look at it, it looks like it's of this world. Like it's a brushed stainless steel almost look in a high quality picture. You know what I mean? Like this looks like something you could buy from a steelworks place.
It's what the PlayStation 6 is gonna look like.
We could make a better monolith than this. We'll call it. We did a monolith.
They're actually PlayStation is probably getting a head start on production for the PS6 because clearly they weren't set with the numbers at the PS5s that they had now.
Crazy.
But yeah, it kind of makes me wonder how he got up there though. You definitely got to get up there by foot.
Maybe the sheep helped him,
or the sheep helped him. He recruited the sheep. Or he had a helicopter that he could drop it by. Maybe it's some rich millionaire guy that can hire a helicopter to come drop it.
Might could be.
It's probably just Banksy. That's my bet.
Banksy.
It's Banksy at it again.
If it is stainless steel, regardless of it being what material, it's got to be heavy. This thing's got to be super heavy. It doesn't look like it's movable.
What if it's hollow? You know what I mean?
Could be. Could.
What if it's filled with Swedish fish or another candy? I'm just putting some off the top of my head.
Ooh, if it's candy, they're probably getting super melty in there, man. Sitting in that hot metal box out in the Utah sun.
That's
It'll
just a big,
be like melted Sour Patch Kids, just like leaking out of it.
It's a big glob of Swedish fish, man.
I think the one indicator that it's not aliens is that there were no apes found nearby.
Oh, true. Well, if those sheep start manufacturing tools in the next few days, then we know we have a Space Odyssey situation on our hands.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Is anybody monitoring the sheep?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they just lost the election.
What, the sheep?
Got them.
Commentary. Yeah, alas, this is cool.
It is cool.
It's probably, for those who aren't familiar, I'd say like the one instance that we have of this, what would you call this? Just like, I know it's an art installation, but it's a certain type of art and I can't remember.
Flash
It's a lot
art?
like, from
Pop
what
art?
we know in being from El Paso, the closest to us would probably be like the Marfa Prada store. You know what I mean? That's like an art installation, like a statement. But I don't know what you call this kind of art. I forgot what you would call this.
I feel like that's a proper description of it. It's definitely some new age art nonsense. How does it make you feel? It makes me feel like you ripped off Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
But you didn't have the means to go all the way through with it.
Yeah, if it is inspired by a Space Odyssey, I will have to poo-poo on the artist a little bit just for,
I mean, maybe the artist
validity.
planned on putting it somewhere way more public, was done and was a little bit ashamed, so he stuck it out here at this random spot in the desert he got to this one time.
So this is like a E.T. the game kind of thing.
Yeah. He just didn't even bury it. Or maybe it's way taller. Maybe he did bury a whole bunch of it.
Well, are we ready to kick it to the end of this episode, y'all? Danny, that was interesting. Thank you very much.
Mildly interesting, at least.
I thought
That
so.
was interesting. We should build something and go leave it in the desert. Just a giant bean. A giant shiny bean.
Like the Chicago bean?
Bigger.
So they won't think it's the Chicago bean.
Yeah.
Just like this guy.
Don't be
We gotta
like,
make
they
sure.
ripped it off. They'll be like, whoa, that's a big bean.
And it needs to be like a pinto bean. That's what it needs to look like. Okay, well, we're here, everyone. We're at the end of an episode. Thanks for sticking with us. And what are we doing? We're doing Peeps Les Predicts, where we have two people, real or fictional, pitted up in hypothetical situations, and we argue about them, and we decide, as a group, who is the victor.
Well, but I'm Danny and that's Frank.
Yeah, we don't have a victor.
This is in the wrong pile.
Sometimes it be like that.
Well, we know
Sometimes
who's a
it's
silly goose.
It was Frank that time that I loaned you the jar and it caused chaos.
There's no way. Ludicrous.
Ludacris. Okay, we have. This is weird. We just talked about these guys last episode. This would have been a good one for last episode. We have Eli Roth versus Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, that is funny.
Man, two guys that I really hate.
Two stankers on this Dopplebänger episode.
I'll take filmmakers recommended to David for 500.
Gross. All right, here we go. For their first predicament. Who would break off the bigger piece of the wishbone?
Hey. I think Eli Roth might be a little more ripped than Robert Rodriguez. So,
I think. He definitely was for Inglourious Bastards.
But which of these two self-indulgent directors is the most self-indulgent?
That's a good question.
Eli Roth likes to toot his own horn quite a bit.
He really does.
Quick question. Is there any strategy to breaking the wishbone? Isn't it just random?
I think so. You know, it probably comes down
there's
to like,
definitely a there's a certain side you have to grab, like just looking at it, and then it's something about the direction that you go to. It's not a way. I read it in a Cracked article
you gotta
one
go
time.
up, don't you?
Yeah.
You gotta like kind of break upwards.
So this is like a finger-based skill then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's all much like many things in life. It's all in the wrist.
So I'm going to go ahead and present to you all that it should be Robert Rodriguez because he is a guitar player. So at
he
the
does
very
have some
least,
finger
he's a little
dexterity.
more manageable with his hands.
I will counter that by saying that Eli Roth is more of a wanker and probably has great wrist strength.
I don't know if being a wanker is the same thing as being exceptionally good at that skill.
That's fair. That's fair.
All Eli Roth is good at is making people
Good
joining a group
counter-argument.
conversation and making everyone feel very awkward immediately. That's what Eli Roth's really good at.
Yeah, David, you argued my heart. I'm gonna have to give it to Mr. Rodriguez on this one.
Yeah, I'll side with you on that.
Okay, well, here we go then. We got one for Rodriguez. And round two, Roth versus Rodriguez.
The groundbreaking case.
Who would win an argument with your conspiracy theory believing uncle at Thanksgiving?
Man,
Well-
these would be each of them would be a hell of an argument, and not like, whoa, that was riveting, but just like, oh my god, they're still going.
You know, I do have an argument for this one too. Here's what I'm thinking. First off, it's difficult to win that argument with that uncle. That's tough. Because this uncle already is like pretty belligerent, pretty nonsensical. The only way you're going to win this argument is not with logic and reason, but also being like a belligerent person. And I think that, again, this is like Eli Roth's, you know, his ability to make people feel, you know, totally uncomfortable just by speaking to them.
You have to come up with something fantastical as well, but fantastical and believable.
Like the Green Inferno.
Wow.
Ooh, trash.
Yeah, for somebody
know.
who usually goes too far, he really didn't go far enough on that one.
Yeah, right.
Could have been so good.
Could have been real good.
I'll
But no, yeah,
say-
David, I think it's his weakness in the first face-off is his strength in this second one for sure.
Yeah. I'd probably have to go with Eli Roth on this one.
Okay, well, then we're decided.
gonna
Well,
take
let's
us to
move
a
on to the
tiebreaker here.
tiebreaker round.
2 out of 3.
So I got
The only fair way to do things.
Okay, tiebreaker round here. Who could better spot a fake news article?
Oh, man.
This is tough.
That is tough to say. I feel like, if anything, if out of both of these two, Eli Roth is more astute at doing some research on the topics that he writes. You know what I mean? Not all of
Interesting.
it. He definitely is like a Wikipedia kind of guy. But that's
I could
probably
see-
what I would say.
I could see what you're saying, though. Like, all of his movies, it does seem like, to a certain degree, they are somewhat researched. Like, if he's going to do a topic, he's at least going to go into it a little bit. Whereas Robert Rodriguez, I don't know if I can say that about his movies.
I don't know if he knows how to read.
He definitely plays guitar using tabs.
And then different point, but another point for Eli Roth. To me, Eli Roth seems like the type of person who would call BS on like anything that you would tell him initially. I don't feel like he's a gullible person. He'd automatically be like, I don't know about that. Let me look into that a little bit.
Be like, you know what? I didn't read that personally, so I'm just not going to believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a guy who spends a lot of time on Snopes. I could see that.
I would think that he's one of the dudes that like, it's fine to listen to Joe Rogan, but I think he listens to Joe Rogan and like listens to Joe Rogan. Like he it's his bro, you know?
Possible. And if he doesn't have Jamie to pull things up. Jamie! Then aren't you arguing against this then? Aren't you saying that he's more likely to fall for a fake news article?
No, because he does some research versus Robert Rodriguez is none.
I feel like I just don't know Robert Rodriguez that well. I feel like I know a little bit more about Eli Roth's personality than Robert Rodriguez, and that's what's hurting him right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, why argue about these two guys anymore? You want to go with Eli Roth?
Yeah, let's go with Eli Roth. They don't deserve more time than they're getting, for sure.
Let's wrap this up so we can get to our finals today.
Brendan Fraser beat Eli Roth out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I would pay money to see that.
Here's our final round. It's Brendan Fraser, our reigning champ, as he is currently, against Eli Roth,
the George of our hearts.
I mean, this is already one that's, you know, who would you trust? So first off, obviously Brendan Fraser, but who would you trust to carve the Thanksgiving bird?
Oh, Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser,
man. Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be like, Eli, what did you do to that turkey?
Yeah, man.
I feel like if anything, like I said, Eli Roth does research a little, but he's also a little Johnny Cut Corners. And
a little Johnny Cut Corners.
Wow.
So he's going to cut corners on that turkey. He's going to give someone a wrong piece or get a little breastbone in there or something. You know, he's probably not, he doesn't have the finesse. And we said Robert Rodriguez probably has the wrist finesse, if out of anyone.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Wrist
one
finesse,
thing
you
Eli
said.
Roth definitely does not have is finesse.
No.
I would imagine like Eli Roth would go up to that turkey and be like, "What, bro?" and just like stab it.
Just be hacking and slashing at it.
He's hacking and slashing. He's hacking. Chopping that meat.
Plus, it
I'm
would
down to
probably
go
be-
with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, it would be delightful to have Brendan Fraser over for Thanksgiving. Like,
He's considerate. You know what I mean? He's a great guest. He brings stories with him. You know, he's probably going to give you a great slice of the turkey. And he's probably going to help you with dishes afterwards.
he probably looks
yeah.
really cute when he falls asleep on the recliner afterwards watching football.
He'll probably have like hot milled like apple cider like on his belly. You know what I mean?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well,
God
may
bless
he
you,
reign
Brendan Fraser.
supreme forever and ever.
The thankful threesome is forever grateful for Brendan Fraser.
Welcome back to Uninformed Movie Reviews, where we love Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser movie ranking list coming soon.
If Uninformed Movie Reviews makes T-shirts at any point soon, it's gonna have Brendan Fraser on the front of it.
Brendan Fraser's face. Him in the Looney Tunes movie.
Yes,
Oof.
and then Monkey Bone. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Check us out on Instagram at Uninformed Movie Reviews, where old David's son here posts some good stuff, some recommendations. Check us out on YouTube at David and Frankenbeans, Uninformed Movie Reviews, Apollo City Comics. Check out Character Limit Exceeded to get our little reviews. And thanks so much for listening. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Let's kick it into high gear for Christmas season, y'all.